Even though the state, directly or indirectly, started to interfere in the social aspects of life since Middle Ages, that interference was mostly to provide the security of the state from, according to state's point of view, dangerous ideas of the poor, like decent life conditions. But in those societies, since most people were living in rural areas, in big families, the people were able to self organize to take care of less fortunate or the elderly. However, in the 18th century, everything changed. Industrialization required a mass influx of people from the rural areas into the big cities to work in factories. All those old connections between people and social nets that was helping people were gone. Ironically, and somewhat relatable, the bigger the city, the more lonely it felt. There were some tries by the workers in different professions to self-organize some sort of social security, but they were never that successful in achieving their main goal, helping people. And here comes the one man that will change the role of a state in human lives forever. His name, Otto von Bismarck, the German Chancellor. The question is, why did the first forms of state social security appear in Germany and not in more developed countries like United Kingdom? Especially considering that Germany only united in 1871 and had no colonies to get free raw material yet. Now, one of the reasons, oversimplified of course, would be the mainstream religion of the time and its teachings, Lutheranism, a form of Christian Protestantism, especially in the northern parts of Germany, in states like Prussia, that initiated unification in Germany in the first place, was placing a whole lot of importance on the word Beruf, which could be explained as one's commitment to his or her profession. That mindset created a powerful state administration way before industrialization. There was an interesting comparison between French king and how was he perceived by the French, and Prussian king and how was he perceived by the Prussians. The French king was the ultimate authority in the state, while the Prussian king was more of a first man of the Prussian administration. So in 1870, 36% of Germans were living in the cities, but in 1910, 60% of Germans were living in the cities. German steel industry surpassed the French one already in 1875, and the UK in the early 20th century. And Germans, alongside USA, were the first one to use electricity in their industry. However, all this rapid industrialization had a bad side too. In 1875, two-thirds of the fabric industry was produced by small businesses and individuals, usually working from home. Some 20 years later, this industry had been completely taken over by big companies. And this side effect of industrialization were same throughout the economy. In 1872, seeing the new changing country, a group of prominent socialists of the time met in the city of Eisenach. They proclaimed their rejection of English-style economic liberalism, and they requested a stronger government intervention, economic and social aspect of German society. Germany at the time had been led by conservative governments, with Otto von Bismarck as the chancellor. There were some tensions between him and social democrats at the time, to put it mildly. The government was censoring their newspapers, and a lot of social democrats ended up in jail. And to curb their popularity among the workers, Bismarck decided to change his approach, hence the first set of laws of state-regulated social security. In first law, in 1881, employers were obligated to secure their workers in case of work-related accidents. They were paying in the fund that was controlled and subsidized by the state. In 1883, the law of mandatory access to healthcare was passed. It was only referring to industry workers whose annual income was less than 2,000 German marks. In this case, the payment in the fund was split between workers and employers. The workers were paying 2/3 of its mandatory requirement, and the employer were paying 1/3. In 1889, the law regulating the rights of retired and disabled persons was passed, marking the final step in making of Social Security regulation.